Welcome to Violin Adventures number 236. In this episode, we do a little bit of work on the Perfling on the new violin. There's an update and more. Hope you enjoy. Okay, after putting in the Perfling, which can be very painstaking, but after we get it in, the fun part is taking it down. And while I'm taking this down, I'm also forming the shape of the channel. This is where I can be artistic and just make it look beautiful. I'm smoothing out the little channel. You can hear how loud the violin is. It's getting ready to sing. Well, here's the violin. Finally, the purfling is taken down, and you can see my little corners. Those are the fun part, where you make those two corners come together and look real nice. So those are my corners for the top. And we turn it over here, and this is the back. The same thing. Putting those little bee stings in is a lot of fun. And then it's also fun trying to make the two pieces of purfling that come together right down here, make it so it's invisible. Can you find where I joined those two pieces? You know, actually I can't find it myself. But anyway, this is finished now. The edges are finished, so maybe next week we will start fitting the neck to the body. A little update. Well, it's an absolutely beautiful day, and so I thought I'd come out here to talk to you. This week was very exciting for Ian and myself because we finally heard from the visa department, the Department of Homeland Security, and they just need more information, which we're working on. That's what we're working on this week, is getting more information sent back to them so that they can approve his visa. So at least now, instead of waiting and waiting, we're finally moving forward. So it should be a few more weeks and maybe we'll hear something. That's just a little update on our visa that we're waiting on. And then after we get the visa, we can set a date. Now here's the violin that was donated to the shop by a nice person, and we're going to take a look at it. In the label it says Cremona, and these are copies. The size of this is more like a 7/8 or a large 3/4. And what I'm going to do is put new strings on here and see how it sounds, and then depending on the sound we'll decide if we need to open it or just leave it as is. So this is definitely, beginner, student quality violin. But the challenge is, let's see how good we can make it sound. I'm taking off the strings that are on it. They're very old. One of the things that makes instruments really cheap is pegs. They'll just be painted wood, just regular wood, not ebony at all, but painted to look like ebony. And a lot of times when you get a cheap instrument like that, you've got to get them replaced because they won't hold, they'll slip around, and they're too soft to do a good job. But before I do a lot of changes, I want to first see how it sounds. This tail piece is the same way too. It's just painted black and it doesn't have real ebony. So this is going to need new pegs. The holes in the pegs are all the way to the other side, which keeps you from being able to tighten it up and hold its pitch. Okay, we're going to try this 7/8 student violin, see how it sounds, just with new strings. I haven't touched the bridge or the sound post. Okay, definitely sounds like a toy violin. So what we've got to figure out is what can we do to make it sound a little better so it will be enjoyable for a child to play. Okay, the next thing we want to do is change the sound post and see how that sounds. We want to do the least intrusive, since it is a very inexpensive instrument. We want to see if a sound post will take care of it. Okay, I've put a new sound post into this violin. Let's see what it sounds like. It is a very low quality student violin So we're just trying to get the best sound we can. Okay, that's much better than it was. Okay, we have two students in the room. We're going to ask them, what do you think of this? Do you think it sounds okay?
Yes.
You like it?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds very good, like a real violin to
You
me.
think it sounds like a real one now instead of a toy?
Yeah.
Okay. Time for a story. Okay, we take up our reading in Violins and Violinists by Franz Farga, and we're on page 180. We're just starting to hear about Ludwig Spohr. He was born in Brunswick in 1784 and was the son of a doctor. He appears to have shown his talent for violin playing at an early age, for the Duke of Brunswick made him his chamber musician when he was only 15. His first teacher was the leader of the Brunswick Orchestra. Young Spohr should then have gone to Viatti at state expense, but the latter had just opened his wine business in London and sent word that he would not accept any pupils for the time being. Spohr therefore got in touch with Franz Eck, who was known as a fine violinist. Eck went to St. Petersburg in 1802, where he was appointed soloist of the court orchestra, and Spohr accompanied him on this journey. He remained 18 months in the Russian capital. It was there that he was presented with his famous Guarneri, whose fate has been described in chapter 4, and that was when they were traveling and had his Guarneri in the case in his trunk, which was attached to the back of the carriage, and they would stop every few miles and make sure it was still there. They entered a city, and he asked the guards if the trunk was still there, and they said, no, there's no trunk there, which made him furious, so he traveled back to where he had seen it last. There was no sign of it, and the police said, you just have to report the instrument stolen, which made him upset. The next day, he found the case without the violin in it, and it has never appeared since then. Okay, back to our story. When Eck died in a lunatic asylum soon afterwards, Spohr had to stand on his own feet. At first, he tried to emulate the French virtuoso Rodet, whom he had often heard and admired. Little by little, however, he developed a style of his own, which must have been impressive because he was giving his own concerts in German towns as early as 1804. His career is marked by success, not only as a virtuoso, but also as an opera composer and conductor. He worked for several years as a conductor and then as a court conductor, where he did meritorious work and trained a magnificent orchestra. He retained his position, which he owed to Karl Maria von Weber, for 25 years. Princely gratitude, however, does not seem to have been showered upon him, for he was suddenly pensioned off with a greatly reduced salary. Later, he broke his left arm and had entirely to give up playing the violin. He died in 1859. As a violinist and composer for the violin, Spohr had served his art well, although he seems to have been lacking in fiery elan and imagination. Despite the purity of his tone and perfect bow technique, his playing was not very brilliant. Sweet melodies, fine cadenzas, and a pleasant modulation were his main strength. His dislike of a too frequent vibrato may have been one of the reasons why his playing was not exactly fascinating. Spohr's contributions to violin composition, however, have retained their full value. Among his 15 concertos, the 8th, written in the form of a musical scene, is definitely a masterpiece. According to many contemporary reports, his multi-stopped playing, his rebound quavers, and his firm staccato, which is also reflected in his compositions, must have been very impressive indeed. In his G minor concerto, Spohr shows himself as a composer of great poetical quality. His violin manual, published in Vienna, has also retained its value, although it has been criticized for progressing too fast and therefore being useful only to extraordinarily gifted students. His numerous violin duets and his chamber music, nowadays somewhat neglected, are also of a very high standard of musicianship. Now the next person will be one of his pupils, Ferdinand David. The Hebrew Minute. Nerina. Then we have to turn the page. Bishuatecha Uvshem Eloheinu Nidgol Yemaleh Hashem Kol Mishalotecha. So the Hebrew word before was we will joy or we will rejoice in your salvation, and in the name of our God we will raise our banner. Hashem, fulfill all your requests. If you know where this is found, please leave it in the comments below. Freddie wants to chat.
Hi, I'm Freddy. And I have a friend who came to visit me this time. Her name is Eliana, and here she is. Wow, that was fantastic. And don't forget to send me your projects. See you next time. Bye.
This is Friday morning. This is Friday afternoon. We're in a bunch of storms, but isn't it beautiful? Let's go in and see what's happening in the shop. My niece Eliana is going to give us a tour of the shop from an 8-year-old perspective.
This is one of Grandchild's harps that she made. And here's one of the little violins. I really think it's nice. And here are some for tools.
Cool.
Here's some more for tools. Was a post that looked like one of the big harps. And then there's another room that I like. Here's some of the toys. But I also like about the candles. I found this fancy candle. And that's where she makes her candles. And then I found more places where some of her candles are. I like the pink one. And then here's some more down here. There's a little red one right here. Really like it. And then I saw some golden music boxes. Small ones. And here are machines for balls. And here's a cello and another cello there. And then Grandchild's has a lot of violins everywhere. And then there's a harp there. And here is another harp. But the special one that I showed you in the beginning of the video I was going to be showing you around was this harp. It is very fancy. And here's one of the violins Grandchild is making. And here's another violin. And then there are some other violins over here. And some other stuff over here. Oh, there's a little case for a violin, it looks like, or a viola. And then here's a little organ. And there's a big organ.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your wonderful comments, for your thumbs up. Thank you to the new subscribers. And until next time, bye.